Hello, I'm Paul Michelman, Director of Content for Harvard Business Digital, and our guests today are Dave Ulrich and Norm Smallwood, authors of Leadership Brand, developing customer-focused leaders to drive performance and build lasting value. Dave and Norm are co-founders of the consulting firm, the RBL Group. Dave is also a professor at the University of Michigan. Dave, Norm, thanks for joining the program today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, our subject for today is leadership, and our mission is to help our audience get out of the business of developing generic leaders and get into the business of building a leadership brand. So, gentlemen, with that setup, give us the 90-second elevator pitch for the big idea here, leadership brand.
Well, there's two pieces, and I'll start and Norm will do the second. The first one is, for many years, people have looked at leaders as individuals. And what do you do to be a great individual? And so an individual becomes a great leader because of the skills or the knowledge or the ability that he or she has. We want to shift that to focus on leadership. It's not what you do as a person, it's how you build the process of building the next generation. So a good leader is somewhat like a good parent, who not only does a good job as a parent, but helps their children become better as a result. That's one idea.
The second idea is a shift from an internal focus on leaders or leadership to an external focus. So on the internal side, some of us are lucky enough to have celebrity leaders who are known by customers and investors, and that helps the stock price. It creates confidence. Others have a leadership system where there's confidence that the quality of leaders in the future will continue to drive results.
Okay, so what are some examples of organizations that have effectively developed leadership brands?
Norm, do you want to go first?
Well, we have examples like Nordstrom's that has developed a brand around great customer service. And so the leaders inside Nordstrom's need to connect. Leadership needs to be the bridge between customer expectations of service and employee action. So great leaders at Nordstrom's would need to be sure that employees always deliver the service experience that's expected.
Another good example might be Apple. Again, leadership brand is when the external customer expectations translate to a set of employee actions. So a good leader isn't a good leader because he or she knows something, it's that they know something that will add value to the customer. Well, Apple wants to be known as a great design and innovative firm. So they would hire leaders and make sure that their leaders are design and innovative. And if they can build that into their leadership, then their employees inside the company do things that are consistent with the customer expectations outside. Apple's an example, Nordstrom's an example, Walmart's an example around managing price, and so their leaders are more cost effective. The definition of leadership should be tied to customer expectations.
Okay. In your book, you provide a step-by-step guide for organizations to build a leadership brand. Why don't we walk through those steps today? First off, you say you've got to nail the leadership fundamentals.
What we found in our work is that every leader in any company, big company, small company, public company, privately traded company, has to do a certain set of things. In fact, what we did is we went to 15 thought leaders in leadership, the best known people we could find, and we asked them, what % of leadership is the same stuff? Everybody's got to have it. And what we found is somewhere between 60 and 70%, that every leader's got to nail the fundamentals. They've got to do the basics well. What we found were 5 basics.
Okay, the 5 basics. In terms of what we call the leadership code, it would be probably the most important is that leaders would have to have personal proficiency. So people need to know that this leader has character and integrity. Then, in addition to that personal proficiency or authenticity or emotional intelligence, things like that, the leader would need to be a strategist, set a direction for the future. People that have confidence that we know where we're going as an organization. The third piece would be that we need to have executors, leaders who make sure that people are accountable and that goals are clear, there's clear measures, there's feedback and consequences for execution. And then then talent developers, which is, again, short-term, getting the most out of the people in the organization. And finally, the long-term human capital developer. We're building the next generation of talent and the critical jobs that create wealth for the organization are being built so that we can execute the strategy, and also so that we create confidence in the future in terms of talent.
So Norm, are these all different individuals fulfilling these roles, or does each leader need to fulfill all of these roles?
Well, as Dave said, when we did this research about the leadership code, the idea was that these are what's known to be effective. All of these 5 things need to be covered by any leader to be effective. And clearly, some leaders will be stronger in some of the areas than others, but every leader needs to have all of these. And a leadership team hopefully will have strengths across the board and be able to select based on the overall 5 competencies or domains of the code.
Got it. So we've got the core competencies nailed. Now we need to connect executives' abilities to the reputation the company wants to have. How do we go about doing that?
What that does is it starts with the customer. Generally what we do to figure out the right competencies, we find 30 leaders who were successful, 30 who weren't, and we do critical incident interviews. The problem with that methodology is it's internally focused. Our argument is very simple. In fact, it's scary that we wrote a whole book on this, because all you have to do is you go to your best customers and you listen to them. What are the set of things that you want this firm to be good at doing? What do you want them to be known for? What's their firm brand? What's their identity? That statement or that set of identity issues should translate into a set of leadership competencies. For example, as we said, at Apple, we want to be very good at innovation. That's going to be different than Walmart, who wants to be good at managing cost. And based on that external view, we build a leadership model consistent with customer expectations. When we took this idea to some business leaders, their first thought was, well, you're rediscovering competencies. And then we said, have you taken your leadership competency model, which almost every firm's got, to your best customers and asked them, are those the things you want our leaders to be good at? And as soon as we said it, they said, we've not done that. Our bet is that you'll find 20 to 30% different than what you have. Because when you find that, it really distinguishes you from somebody else.
So I'm going to bet most companies don't have a leadership brand, at least not a formal one. What's holding them back, and what's the risk of not having one?
Let me answer that question a little bit differently. Answer a little bit different question. All companies have a leadership brand, and all companies have a firm brand. It's just that some of them may not be what the company wants them to be. So if you think about what we mean by firm brand, it's how does this company want their target customers to describe them? So when we think about Nordstrom's, they want to be described in terms of the kind of service that they deliver to their customers. If going back to Dave's answer or discussion about Apple, they want to be known for innovative new products. So all companies have a way that they'd like to be described, but sometimes that isn't exactly the way customers would describe them. Think of most airlines we travel on today. It isn't exactly the experience that we'd like to have. So if we think about leadership brand is the bridge between that firm brand, the way that we want customers to describe us, and employee actions. And so when that isn't what we'd like it to be, we find that there's also a poor leadership brand. And the reason for that is because most companies, or many companies at least, really have fair weather investments in the way that they do leadership. It isn't tied to a logic of brand. It isn't tied to their business. It's tied purely to this individual logic of competency building, which when there's economic downturn, people tend not to invest for the long term. So it's only when we connect leadership brand to the value creation process of the business and to making customers want to be a part of what you are that we get that strong leadership brand that really connects to value creation. And that's when we really get something going. Dave, what would you add to that?
I agree with Norm that it isn't that companies don't have a leadership brand. What it often is tied to a person. And so when the founder of the firm leaves, the quality of leadership dissipates. Sometimes we found in our work, by the way, that some leaders have a short-term success. They surround themselves with people not quite as good. And in the short term, they look great. Good leaders who build a leadership brand surround themselves with people who are superb and who push them, so that when they leave, the next generation is actually better than the present. The thing we're encouraging, though, is that to be better than the present is we connect with our customers. We connect the outside expectations to the inside actions. And that's where Leadership Brand really has power.
So what else does the audience need to know about how to go about doing this?
You know, what we've done is walk through a very simple logic, Paul. We've said leadership is more important than an individual leader. So we shift from the leader to leadership. We shift from leadership to leadership brand. And leadership brand is when the customer expectations translate into a set of employee actions. How do you make it happen? You build a good distinct statement of what our leadership brand should be. You assess people against it. Then you invest against it. And the investment is to say, how do we put money, budget, resources against building that leadership brand? That might include training, good training. Good training is not a tourist activity. It's not travel in a city, take pictures, and go home and pretend you were there. Good training is a guest. A guest in a city experiences the city. They walk around, they feel it. In executive development or leadership development, we should have our leaders become guests. Make the training part of business. Have customers come, have managers present, have action learning projects. Make it a guest experience. In addition to that, we should have job assignment and job experience, and making sure that our people learn by having challenging and difficult jobs. And third, and the most innovative we find, is life experience. Any of us who've had children have learned about performance appraisal and how to give feedback or how not to give feedback. If we can transfer that knowledge from our life into our business setting, we're going to be more able to build leadership. So the investment comes from training, job assignment, and life experience. And when we couple those in, we've invested well with what we've done.
Dave Ulrich, Norm Smallwood, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.